Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Will with Spotlight On from NFNLP. And today I get to introduce somebody I've known for over 20 years now, right? Over 20. Mr. Charles, he's a master NLP trainer, master hypnotist. He's one of the world's leading experts in meditation. We're going to hear about all that, but I've known him for a long time. And so help us welcome, Charles Crenshaw.
Hi.
All right. Well, we always start the question with, very few people in the world of hypnosis and NLP. And, we do some interviews with like psychologists that are in our world, but it's usually not the thing we started out to do, to become a hypnotist or a NLPer or any kind of change agent. So, and I know you got a really cool little story how you kind of got into this. So tell us a little bit about how you got into it of our world here.
So I got into this by being a Vietnam veteran, let's correct that, veteran, and being taken to Asia and bumping into Buddhism and going, oh, meditation. Well, where was this in my neighborhood? And so then practicing on my own, I said I have to find somebody who knows more about this than me. And that brought to my town, a guy who was raised in a cave in the Himalayas and was one of the premier people in the world in the practice of meditation. And he furthered my understanding. And one of the things that he said, I distinctly remember sitting in an audience listening to a lecture, and he said, you shouldn't practice this hypnosis business, and that was like, well, why? And and he gave told a story. He said, when I was young, I wandered around the villages in the Himalayas. And he said, I would hypnotize people and I would levitate them. And I'm listening, everybody in the audience is listening, going like, okay, this guy, we know he has skills. Some of them have been documented by, such leading sources as the Menninger Foundation back in the day. They were doing research on biofeedback and things like this. So we're listening, and he says, well, one day I hypnotized a villager and levitated him, and I couldn't get him down. I couldn't get him out. So now at this stage of my life, I know, okay, a teacher got the guy in coma state and didn't know how to get him out of coma state. I said that. Now the levitation, I have no idea what happened there, but coma state, I understand, okay? And so that's why he was saying, you shouldn't do this unless you have skills, you have a purpose of doing this. You shouldn't just be try-lying. And so come to seminary, I went to seminary for 5 years in New York. It was founded by an old Hasidic rabbi named Gelberman, a famous, the Swami that was sitting on the stage at Woodstock, Swami Satchidananda. These two guys spearheaded opening a seminary in Manhattan. And the seminary, I'm there in classes, attending classes, and there's a guy who comes through quite naturally talking about hypnosis. And so I'm going, oh, hypnosis again. Oh, let's investigate this. So that led me to taking classes with George Bien in New York. And then from there, studying, and I went to India. And actually in India, I was going to go and study with this one guy who said he could, he could stare at your picture and, get you to do things, stuff like this. And I asked one of my elders, I said, hey, I want to go and study this. And he said, you don't want to go do it, And so it's part and parcel of the practice of yoga, something called Tradaka, where you gaze at something. And my teacher even said, if you, and everybody's done it, if you sit and stare at somebody long enough, they'll kind of turn around and look at you, because they get a feeling somebody's watching them. So it was a kind of a variation of the theme of something like that. Anyway, all this stuff goes on. Come back in 1996, and that's the time when all the commotion was happening, and you left Indiana and went to Florida, and I talked to you on the phone because I had talked to you before we went, I took the, I don't remember whether I took the first training with you before or after I went to India. But I remember talking to you and saying, you know, I'm leaving Indiana because the silly law that got rescinded, you know. And I'm kind of going, oh wow. And I was gonna be missing you because I'm kind of going, you're my go-to guy. I'm kind of going, okay, you're my guy. You know what's happening. And so you moved, and I continued studying and doing things. So all of that got reconnected back here. I was practicing hypnosis on the sly because, you know, the guy from we won't say whose organization was, but the guy who had made the law so that only that organization's people could be licensed in the state. And they were saying I had to retake all the training I took with the guild over again with this guy. I'm going, I'm not paying this fool money to do this. So anyway, then he died and everything dissolved. So I'm kind of going, oh, that's silly, you know. So anyway, I've been a member of NFNOP. Wow, God, maybe 20 years, maybe longer. As long as I've known you, I've, you know, off and on when I wasn't in India or whatever.
Yeah. All right, cool. And how'd you get, and so you've been practicing the meditation with this.
Yeah.
You teach meditation all over.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite thing in hypnosis and NLP? Two-part question. What is your favorite kind of client to work with? We all have kind of favorite. Everybody knows mine is, one of them is addictions, and the other is performing arts for me. What are the kind of clients you really like working with?
I really like working with people who have just kind of minor things. I mean, you said addictions. I took at the New School for Social Research in Manhattan. I got a certificate of training in alcohol and substance abuse counseling, and then I proceeded to go to try around town to get jobs. And I remember going just distinctly, oh, you know, you don't dress properly. You know, I was kind of dressed like this going for an interview. I'm kind of going, well, you know, you didn't say it was, three-piece suit and whatever. I got kind of little strange things. So I never quite got there. But people who have, like one client came in, she said she was drinking three glasses of wine. And she was actually referred by massage therapist. And we worked on that. She stopped biting her nails and stuff like this, all in 1 or 2 sessions. And it's like just people who are looking to improve things that they think are not improvable, you know. And that leads me to the thing, you know, because even we use this in meditation. And I have, you know, for instance, a guy who comes and he says, you know, every time I start getting deep into the practice of meditation, then I go off and I want to get high. I'm going, okay, so we kind of work with that. And so I guess my favorite clientele are people who have a mission for self-improvement and are seeking ways, which the NLP is, you know, really lovely for, seeking ways to press that forward in a powerful way, you know, versus people who, and I don't see people who are sent by the courts or anything like that. I did that once with yoga. They sent a bunch of kids. I was part of a study. Well, no, Dr. Tom Brown got a grant, and it was for these kids, and they were all felons, you know. I mean, and I'm showing them a forward bend, and they said to me, you know, like, hey, they like you in prison. I'm kind of going like, what? How old are you, man? You know, like, you're 14. So I don't like working with people who don't have a mission, you know, and it could be anything. And the lady who I talked to who did the 3 glasses of wine, my first question to her was, are you an alcoholic? You know, do you need a meeting as well as this interaction? The same massage therapist sent me a guy, and this guy had been a dancer, and he was an alcoholic. The doctors were working with him. He had to take, you know, a little sip of booze every day so that he wouldn't go into DT, stuff like this. he came to see me once, and we did something that he thought was fruitful. And I'm going like, okay, my thought was, this guy needs to see Will, you know, because he was seriously an alcoholic. I don't work with, you know, and he couldn't do the program because he didn't like the I said, no, you need somebody with serious skills. I don't like to work with people like that, you know. So people who are motivated, who are stuck, you know, and that's my cup of tea.
Oh, okay. Well, it's kind of like, you know, like a lot of hypnotists I know love working with athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And I put actors, dancers, performing arts with that, you know, because when they show up, they're motivated.
Yeah.
Right. It's always like the old thing. Remember we used to use cassettes? We'll
Mm-hmm.
date ourselves here, Charlie. And, you know, the difference is somebody comes in for stop smoking. I always used to say, you do your session, say, now listen to this every day for a week. And they come back, I didn't have time. You have an athlete come in, you do a session, you say, now listen to this every day for a week. They come back, they go, can I get another one? I wore it out. Yeah. And it's you know, and it's long known in the addiction world, as you studied it, you know, from the academic side, is when they say, what's the success rate of like AA or any of these things? They always have, now they're actually breaking it down. If the people want to be there, the success rate's quite high. Right. If, you know, your judge, the probation, or your wife, as I always say, your lover, liver, livelihood, or the law, makes you go there.
Yeah. People ask when I do hypnosis, you know, and I got this from you, you know, when I do a smoking cessation. So can you guarantee? I'm kind of going, you know, do you go to the heart surgeon and ask them for a guarantee? I mean, they use their best skills, and they'll, you know, and they'll say the odds are this. I said, but guarantee? There's no guarantees. And the you know, if you want to succeed, you will succeed. If your four things, liver, whatever it was you said, then no, it's just like you're wasting your money giving it to me, and I'm good with taking it. It doesn't come back once it's here.
That's my guarantee. You know, a guy used to do those stop smoking seminars on the road. They say, what's your guarantee? Well, I'll give your money back till the taillights are out of the parking lot. And I always say the difference between us and medical doctors is if you're doing a heart surgeon and I'm doing the heart surgery on you and you die on the table, Medicare's still paying me.
Right.
You know, the operation was a success. The patient didn't live.
Yeah.
Cool. So where you know, the great thing about what we do with NLP, hypnosis, meditation, which you tie it into yoga and that world, is what do you want to study next? What's exciting you? You know, my big thing now is epigenetics, right? It's like people keep saying, are you going to do a class on it? I said, I don't know. A lot of this shit I study, I just do it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, this is some cool stuff. I don't quite know how I don't want to monetize everything. You know, it's like, that's why I never ran a dojo, right? So anyway, what do you want to study next? Because there's so much stuff coming out, and then the question with that I find fascinating is, as a meditator for over 30 years, right? 40?
Over 40 years.
40 years. Now they have the research, because now we can actually, you know, map the brains of what the meditators have been saying for 10,000 years. Yeah. Now, okay, well, here's what it's doing. I just watched a video this morning on, this is what it's doing in your brain. Here's the brain of a meditator after 30 years. Here's the brain of a normal person, right? Here's a brain with Alzheimer's. Here's a brain. I love this one. You'd like this. Here's a picture of a brain of a guy with Alzheimer's. There's dead spots, right? And then here's a brain. We taught him how to meditate. The spots got better.
Oh, wow.
You know. So anyway, what do you want to study next?
Well, see, the thing is that my line of thinking is like your line of thinking, because my graduate work was in, you know, it was a crossover degree, which was psychology, yoga psychology, so Western psychology, yoga psychology, and integrated medicine, which used to be called holistic health. And so these very things that you're talking about are things that also fascinate me, because I saw your post on epigenetics, and I even mentioned to you, if you haven't come across it, there's a book by the, the, the publisher of my book, EFT for Meditation, Energy Psychology, the guy who was the publisher wrote a book called The Genie in Your Genes. You would like this book. You should probably get it and read it. And because he's dealing with epigenetics and things like this, if I recall correctly, definitely genetics. But the thing is with meditation, and this is how NLP fits in here for me. With meditation, one of the things that a guy named Newberg and other researchers, so the neuroscientists, right down your alley, okay, they did some things that I recall from graduate school where we saw a film and they took the skull cap off of a cat and they poked it, the brain, and the cat had a response, and they poked another place, cat had a response, which is then now we've come to the place where we see the neuroscientists who are doing it with the 64-pin EEG. And I had the opportunity to be hooked up to 64-pin EEG and do some of the practices that I've been taught and make the machine do what I wanted it to do. As an example, there's a breathing practice. It's called alternate nostril breathing. Some folks have heard of it, but I did this. And when I did it, focusing on this nostril, the parietal lobe of my brain lit up, and it was in deep dreamless sleep, 0 to 3 cycles per second. Hit the button for the technician, and I switched and did this nostril. The parietal lobe lit up here. And I know that the parietal lobe has some specific qualities, language, stuff like this. I'm going, so why was the language? I said, I'm counting time. So when I hit the button again, and when I did both nostrils, the technician said there was no specific place lit up. The whole thing was lit up. The yogis have been saying this for 10,000 and more years because that's what they call sushumna, or happy mind. Both hemispheres firing, and that's the level of creativity. All kinds of fascinating things happen when the brain's in sync like that. And so I'm looking at that going, okay, now how does that relate to NLP? How does this understanding of the brain, the neuroscientists now are saying, well, if we stimulate, I'm not remembering the exact parts, but I'm just going to kind of be a generalized. If we stimulate this part of the brain, a person has the experience of being out of the body. If we experience this part of the brain, people have a euphoric experience. All these things they know, just like you showed about the Alzheimer's, they know that when a meditator practices, these parts of the brain are stimulated, and that's why they are having these experiences. So then that says, well, what the yogis are saying, there's something beyond that. Well, in point of fact, there is something beyond that by my understanding. But for the purposes of the average person who's looking to improve their sports, improve their health, get themselves out of difficulties, then the tools of NLP are the things that you want to do, and how these things work on the neurology, which is one of the things you talked about to us, how it works on the brain and the different tools, how they change the neurology so that it's not really guessing. Like when I first started, I was going, well, is this really going to work? But now going, okay, you just follow the rules, and this paradigm is so uniquely fascinating that it changes the neurology, and you don't have to worry about, did that work? It's like boom, 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 step, 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 boom, 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 and you see, and people have permanent change, but it's working with the neurology the same way that the neuroscientist is saying, okay, you have this experience when this part of the brain is lit up, or the occipital lobe or parietal lobes and stuff like this. It's just most fascinating to me. And so that is kind of going into this, I mentioned to you in passing, this book I'm trying to write. I'm trying to get an agent for a book. So I'm trying to get paid for writing a book versus just writing a book and scuffling afterwards. So if the gods smile, I'll get an agent for the book that I'm proposing to write, to draw these connections between meditation and we just did a seminar in Minneapolis, which was along these lines of where does the psychotechnology, that's the term that one of our mentors who they were both, one was a psychologist, one was a psychologist, and one was a psychiatrist, I think. But he was the MD for sure. And so they, I thought coined this term psychotechnologies, but it's a term that's in the vernacular. And but using the technologies like NLP, because it's a technology, using the technologies to help people to improve their behaviors, just like, and things like this. So that is fascinating. I'm doing a lot of research on how the brain is affected by hypnosis, because there's not a whole lot of research on brain research on the brain on hypnosis. It's not a conversation about theta waves, stuff like this, but what actually is happening in the brain. So I found a couple of research things. I'm doing more literature review. You know what that is, literature review for drawing these connections, so that it's mostly directed. It's directed at hypnotists. One of the names I kind of floated out there is meditation and hypnosis, and we've given a couple, my wife and I, a couple of seminars, 2-hour things at the convention. But it's like going in there, what's the science? Because that's one of the things that in graduate school they talked to us about. Our thing was developing protocols to validate to the Western scientific materialistic mind that these subjective scientists known as the yogis are proving, like you're saying, all the brain research now is validating all the stuff that the yogis have been saying forever and ever. And so, like, okay, so how do these things fit? And you need these tools to help you to progress in your meditation practice. So that's my kind of focus. That's my thing. What are our hands-on tools that somebody can use, even without an operator like you or I, but they can use? Okay, I can show you, for instance, these physicians who wrote this book, who I'm saying have this term, the psychotechnologies. They mention, the phasphobia cure as a means of disassociation. Well, the thing is that disassociation, or dispassion, as it's explained in the field of meditation, in the realm of meditation, is dispassion. Well, dispassion and disassociation, not dissociation in the sense that you, a clinician, would say somebody's kind of like, okay, disturbed, but dispassion, that's a requisite for the practice of meditation, for the practice of understanding the true nature of reality. So these tools are helping a person who is maybe struggling with meditation. Oh, well, I understand dispassion. I understand, okay, this is giving me a little glimpse, and I need to do that in my meditation practice, as well as I've gotten over that fear of snakes or whatever. I was telling my wife, as you know, my wife doesn't look like me, but I was telling her, there would be a movie, and the movie would have right-wing extremist Americans. Let's put it that way. And I said, I can't go see that. It'll make me mad. I'll get angry. Okay. And these tools of meditation, even being a meditator, these tools of NLP and whatever have helped to bring about that dissociation, so I can look at it and say, okay, that's just, okay, we can go to Star Wars, may the force be with you. That's just the dark side of the force, Charles. Understand that, I mean, you're with Luke, and the guys, and Chewbacca, the actor died, My wife was sad. She likes Chewbacca. But that's the dark side of the force. It's there. You have, and there's people who are on the light side of the force. Me and you, okay, we're doing our combat against the dark forces. Okay, fine, all right. So, but before it was like, it was, and it prevents you from functioning well on the planet, So
cool. Well, and when you were mentioning brain scans, I'll say one thing, just get your opinion, and then we'll jump in and pick one of your favorite techniques. With all the stuff they know about brains, there's a guy, I think he was past president of the American Psychiatric Association, and he was kind of giving a speech that he finds it incomprehensible to him that with the technology we have now, that they still will just give you life-altering medication based on your symptoms, when they could wire you up and they'll, no, he doesn't have this, he has this, because now they have the brain scans to say, no, bipolar, this is what your brain doing. This guy's just depressed. If you give him the bipolar meds, you're going to alter. And so, and the guy even mentioned back about now they're beginning to figure out why. Well, and the research points out that guess what? If somebody practices meditation, and I would argue self-hypnosis or guided hypnosis, it gets the same result as the medication without the side effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
yes.
Except for the fact you got to make a billionaire more money. Hey.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. I was with a physician. We were in the foothills of the Himalayas. We were having conversations similar to this. She said, I stopped prescribing mindfulness-based stress reduction things related to meditation. Okay. And I said, well, why would you do that? You know? And she said, because nobody I found wants to take responsibility for themselves. Okay. So whether it's a pill or whatever it is, nobody wants to do it. So that keeps the I call it the pharmaco-medical industrial complex in process, you know? Because for sure, I mean, there are people who, I went to India 2 years ago, and there was a lady, and she's an Ayurvedic physician, okay? And Ayurvedic physicians, they do basically what the brain scans do in a different way, like the brain scan example that you just gave, okay? What they do, and this also with Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, same thing. They read your pulse. They read your pulse and say, oh, you know, the lady told me, she said, you shouldn't eat this, you shouldn't do this, you have this, don't you? And she's reading my pulse and she's hardly touching me. And I'm questioning her, and she tells me all this stuff about me she couldn't possibly know, we've never met. And she asked me if I was going to be a good patient. I'm kind of going, I said, darling, you just told me stuff that ain't no way you could know it. Even my mama don't know some of this stuff. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. But it's a way also of accessing that. And the thing is that if we practice meditation, we can be aware. We can make ourselves aware. It's the war between subjective science and objective science still exists in the paradigm in the West. But then again, the brain science, the scans and stuff are validating that no, just a simple observation of your breath and letting that guide you can tell you lots of things, you know. People who are, we have a guy who we go and see in Indiana here, and there's something called a biomeridian machine. And I have one physician and he uses the biomeridian machine, but there's a guy here in Indiana, he does it with his hands. He can tell things about your meridians. So we're talking about Chinese medicine and organs just by, you know, feeling places on your body, and then simple things. You just need vitamin C. Bipolar, for instance, you mentioned in passing, I want to know what their breathing pattern is. And my take is that it's very possible that if a person changed their breathing pattern, they could help to moderate the effects of bipolar, because manic is breathing up here like this, and depressed is breathing with sighs. I'm kind of going, so what if you manage that? You know, if you manage that to where your breathing is the same, even inhale and exhale, same length, no pauses, okay, which is the pattern that my moment to moment way of breathing is, that's how I have trained myself. I'm going, okay, well, what if everybody who was interested in this, in the evolution of their own consciousness, understood those things and used those things, even with doctors, and, you know, prescribing, like that doctor said, I'm not doing this because no one wants to take responsibility. But then for those folks who want to take responsibility, then it's to me, it's a wide open and amazing thing that can happen.
Well, and speaking of breath, then we'll get which technique you're going to teach us or demo for us. I took martial arts with a guy named George Dillman, the pressure point guy, who he was the guy that taught Muhammad Ali the backhand and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But he said, what he always thought about Muhammad Ali, that, and it could just be a story, but I'm like, God, I should go back and watch tapes. A lot of fighters before a fight, they're bouncing around doing this. They said, of course, Muhammad Ali would get in your face, get you all cranked up. But then before he started, his breath almost stopped. He was breathing so slow when the fight started in between rounds. Right. Because he was, putting his brain in sync, his brain and body. And he said once to Dillman, he goes, well, it's about keeping he goes, I can't control my body if I can't control my mind. And the way I control that is with my breathing. Right. And I'm like, but it just reminded me.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, as a runner, I mean, he ran for miles. Somebody, his caliber athlete, you run for miles. It's pattern breathing. And he was intuitive enough to pick up on, hey, this breath has a connection. And he used that, okay? My thing was, you got this great big huge guy and his heart rate is 60 beats a minute, resting heart rate, 60 beats a minute all the time. I have a friend who rides bicycles, world class, he rides bicycles, 55 miles to work and back, stuff like this. His resting heart rate is like 30 or 40 beats a minute. People say, that's pathology. No, this dude is vibrant, and he was taught by some physician who understood these things and how they relate. So then, an aside, my mother's from Louisville, and legend has it that she used to babysit over at Ollie's, somebody's babies. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. My mom was gone now.
Well, and then last thing I will say before we do your technique is, Muhammad Ali's training camp was in Pennsylvania, in the mountains of Pennsylvania, who he sold it to George Dillman for pennies on the dollar. And it was a martial arts camp till George had to sell it. And the reason he picked it is George said is when he was, of course, he was Muhammad Ali's at the height of everything, and all that. He went to all these different sites and he was looking for a place where the energy felt good. And I forget what kind of rock the mountain is made out of. And that's where he would run up and down the hills, is in there to get in tune with the energy.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you mentioned the martial arts aspect of the pressure points, and I've watched Ayurvedic physicians, demonstrating, because they are really the origins of the whole martial arts scenario. The doctor had a goat and he pressed on someplace back near his hip, and the goat fell down unconscious, and he's explained to the students, whatever. And then he at another point, and the goat jumps up, and I'm going, yeah, this knowledge is there. And one more thing before we get to that other thing, I have a friend, he's an Aikido master, he's German. And I've searched for a long time because I've always been interested in the spiritual connections where these things originated. And I intuited that there was something way deeper. I read the works of the guy who founded Aikido and whatever, and I never found anybody. I think I may have told you this story, and I found some guys here, and they were fourth dans and stuff like this. They said, nobody knows that stuff. That stuff doesn't exist, which I'd heard that story before. And then I go to India and I meet up with my friend who is also a Swami now, but he's, way beyond, like upper tier in the Dan scenario with Aikido. And on his site, he talks about martial arts originated in India. The sages, they originated in India, and Bodhidharma went to China, but Bodhidharma is a warrior caste from India. I'm going like, oh, this is way too deep, like this whole thing, all the connections and stuff like this. And actually about Tears to Mask, I'm kind of like, I knew there was some connection with the meditation. I knew there was. Anyway.
Cool. All right. So what technique are you going to demo for us or show us or talk about?
Well, I'm just going to, the thing that I like, again, because like I say, I'm interested in how things change neurologically. This whole thing of taking the submodalities and using swish pattern. And I never use swish. I just had people move things around in the screen of their mind and, take all the submodalities, what color is it? How far away is it? Is there sound? All these things. And for example, we just did, the seminar this past weekend in Minneapolis, and it's a group, and they're saying, well, how do we do this? I said, okay, you have the screen of your mind here, okay? And so there's a picture of you with some resounding success. There's some resounding success, okay? So where is it in the screen of your mind? It's located there. And we had actually prepped the students by saying, okay, look at some thought, does it have a border? Is there a color? Is it, what's the depth of the field? So we kind of prepped them. So they found the place of success. And see, this is the thing too that's interesting, because the founders, and the gurus of NLP say you should be using, color to your advantage and the depth of field, stuff like this. Well, I find oftentimes that, in this case, in this very example, the picture of somebody's success is right there in the screen of their mind, okay? And then the thing they want to do is someplace over here, down there, okay? And so I'm going, okay, what we need to do is, we know you have the neurology for success. We know you have it. You have the unconscious awareness, you did the steps to take, the conscious capabilities to do this because you've done it, okay? Over here, you don't have access to that. So we start doing what are the submodalities here, what are the submodalities there, and comparing them. And then doing the swish, okay? You're gonna move this picture over here to here. Now, in this recent weekend, I had them doing one of the things you read, or the presentations about doing the swish pattern, drill a little hole through that picture and make the other picture come in front and replace or whatever. And I had a couple of students in class go, it didn't work for me. It worked better for me just to move the picture. I'm kind of going, this is the flaw with doing things in a group. Because if I had been with you one-on-one, I would have known that little thing here is not going to work, because for whatever reason, this person is rationalizing, and we know that you have to cut off that critical factor to have success in this. And you go rationalizing, nothing happens. So a couple of people didn't have success because they were going like, how am I going to make that hole through there? Is a laser hole? It's still tiny. So nope, cut that down. Okay. But nonetheless, getting these two pictures. And my thing is my understanding is that, again, the neurology of success is here. However it is in your mind that you have made it there, it's there. We need to get everything else that you want to get success in over there to that position, because that position knows how to do stuff. And so we did, again, I don't use swish. I say, okay, as fast as you can, move the picture, do the swish. And everybody who's listening to this probably knows what the swish pattern is. Do the swish and have the picture of what you want over here in the position of the neurology of what it is that you've already achieved success at. And then we had the debate about, well, what do I do with the other picture? I'm kind of going, okay, you're rationalizing, you're analyzing. Stop analyzing. So if you want, just have the picture back there, but the actual position in your mind field. Mind field is actually a word from yoga science. In your mind field, you want to have this picture in the same position in your mind field as where that neurology is for your ultimate success. Okay. And so we did that. And there are people who had, one guy was writing a book. He said, I've written 180 pages and I can't finish the last pages. And he says, all of a sudden now we do this. And, I got to leave because I want to go. I got 20 pages I got to finish so I can get this book. I'm kind of going, yeah. So that kind of thing, simple. But the fascinating thing is, it's talking to people who are been meditating for 40, 50 years and saying, these guys stumbled upon this technology. they went around listening, and then they intuited how to devise it, and it's still developing, because even you develop new little tricks to do, and any good NLPer is going to be saying, okay, well, just like me, I'm going, well, I don't need to swish, I just need, say, the neurology is there for your success, put that picture over there and keep doing it. So, well, some people say, well, it didn't work. I said, you need more times doing it. You know, that one guy who had the 180 pages, in 5 swishes, he was there. Another lady, so we did more. And I said, is the picture getting closer? And the people saw it getting closer. I'm kind of go, okay, well, see, these are kind of resistances. So we work on that, you know. Well, what just why is it that you are resisting doing this? So that's a whole other aspect of dealing it. But that I really like that, because that's taking, again, me out of it. All I'm making you aware of is, what are these things that you already have inside you, which is one of the presuppositions in NLP, that you already have everything you need inside you to have success. And so I'm going, okay, let's use those tools. You have everything you need, so just get it over there, you know. And if there's resistance, we might need to do it 20 times. I had a client yesterday, as a matter of fact, and most people do this this swish pattern in, you know, 20 repetitions, and they, you know, it's there. Okay, it's part of the blowout. Okay, and we had to do that for maybe 10 minutes before it took. I'm going, okay, that's just this person's thing, you know. I was about to abandon it, saying, okay, different technique, Charles, but things were changing. She was noticing changes. I'm going, all right, well, this is just her modus operandi, so let's go with it. So that's my favorite thing. And really, my favorite thing is getting people to understand the neurology changes from this seemingly miraculous techniques that these guys, again, just stumbled across. And then guys like you, who then, because in you know, as my friend from Louisiana says, for true, the whole idea of the neurological aspects of it, I got from you, you know, whole cloth. I'm kind of going, oh, that makes sense. That fits right in with my understanding of meditation and brain science, stuff like this. I'm kind of going, oh yeah. So that's my thing, helping people to see that. And then you don't need me to do that anymore. You have another problem, you just, okay, neurology is here, you know, boom, and do the thing, you know, for yourself.
Cool. How do people get, because I know you've written a book, you got some other things going on. How do people get in touch? There's your book.
That's the book on EFT. And then I have a book on my practice of meditation.
Oh, and by the way, with this call, with those books, Christina and I, well, mainly her, I just do what I'm told, has decided we're going to put a book thing on our website, like a bookstore. We're not going to sell your books. It'll just be a link to your site or your, however you want to sell your book. So for all my NFNL people have books, I'm just going to we're going to put up a bookstore, but we're not going to sell your book. So, because some people want download, just go to, so what's your website? How do people get in touch with you?
So my website, generally speaking, is Easily Stop Smoking Now. EasillyStopSmokingNow.com.
Okay.
That's how I can be reached.
Okay. Well, that'll be in the, like, what does the internet marketers go? Down below, push. Stephen G. Jones, down below, click now. All right, good. So I'd like to thank you and for sharing with us. If people have any questions, again, it's easillystopsmokingnow.com. And of course, you can find him on our website. He's one of our trainers, does trainings for us, one master trainer, and he's very good at what he does. So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Charles, and we'll see you in a few weeks, in fact, come to think of it.
Yep, you will.
Cool.